Hi, welcome back. I'm Ashley Swartz. For those of you that were here this morning, I was privileged enough to be able to talk to the buy side of the programmatic ecosystem. Now we're going to talk to the sell side, the technologies, and the publishers that are sort of putting the inventory in the system. So I'm going to kick it off by having everyone introduce themselves, and then I'm going to do what I did this morning and just give a little vocabulary level set, and then we'll get into it. Jay, you want to start down at that end?
Hi everybody, I'm Jay Vanderzee. I work for Google in our media platforms business, overseeing, among other things, video for our ad exchange.
Hi, I'm John Rogers. I work for Videology. I oversee our media partnerships division. Videology is a video ad platform where we help advertisers bring TV budgets online. And on the media side of the house, we give our publishers access and control over which advertisers run on their inventory.
Hi, I'm Erwin Castellanos, head of sales for LiveRail. And we basically do all things helping publishers monetize their inventory. We're a first-party ad server for video and also a video SSP, so trying to help publishers monetize as much as we can programmatically.
Rob Kuckerman with Vivo, head of audience sales strategy. 8 weeks into the job.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Lavasek. I'm the Vice President for Programmatic at the Weather Company. I oversee our programmatic sales channel, and I'm a double agent. I was formerly a programmatic buyer, so could have sat on that panel this morning a year ago.
So which one was the dark side?
It's all dark.
Okay.
It's all dark.
All right. So this morning, I just made an observation as like the Switzerland, which I think, you know, what you are when you're kind of on a consultant or whatever in the ecosystem, having been on the buy side, now sort of sitting, and I have publisher clients and technology clients on a regular basis. We all are using the same words, and the majority of the time when I'm party to a conversation, everyone that is using those same words typically has a different meaning, right? So let's just level set. When we talk about programmatic or automation, let's just nebulously say they're synonymous. It's the use of technology or data for the purpose of making more efficient or informed or addressable media buys, right? The other thing is RTB, and we're just going to sort of put that off to the side and red flag that. That's a red card, because the reality is that we're mostly focused on the plurality of the dollars, which is premium video, and I think sort of like programmatic television, et cetera, a pure play, real-time bidding or real-time buying scenario for premium video, given that it's an illiquid market, isn't probably immediately relevant. So quite often programmatic RTB are used interchangeably, and let's not do that and stick to this language, just to be simple. More for the benefit of you as an audience. So I want to kick it off, and I'm going to start with the sort of publishers. So Rob and Jeremy, guys, you know, quite often programmatic has been wrongly described as a race to the bottom, right? And part of that is because the evolution of programmatic and display was driven because there was too much liquidity in the market. We had to find a way to actually make the inventory more valuable, whereas in video, it's inventory constrained. So I would love to hear from you guys, kind of your lens on, one, why you double down on programmatic, and two, what's the ROI that you're seeing in it? Is it operational, reduced overhead and OPEX? Is it that you're seeing higher CPMs? All of a sudden now you can monetize data? Like, please be specific as you can. Jeremy?
Specifics. So a few things. For our business in particular at the Weather Company, there's two areas where programmatic, as it relates to video, is important. So one, our inventory levels are extremely volatile, right? You probably all know that from being outside on the sidewalk today. Depending on the weather outside, there is a great deal of volatility in our traffic, sometimes in the order of 5 to 10x during major events. Think like Hurricane Sandy or the snowstorms this winter. It's impossible to have a human being go out and sell against that volume. You can't call up an agency the day before a snowstorm and say, hey, would you like to spend an extra $500,000 tomorrow? It's not going to happen. So we need automation. We need those tools. As much as I agree that there is a limited supply when it comes to premium video, where generally most of that is sold by our direct team, we do handle, you know, volatility very well in the programmatic channel. The other thing I would say is that activating data is big for us. We have a business called Weather Effects, where we actually use weather data to target advertising in real time for our clients. So day like today would be, a great day to run Poland Spring ads or cold Budweiser ads or whatever it may be. So we're doing both. We're using both automation and data. As for the ROI, it's high. It's big.
I'm okay with
It's
that.
been successful.
That's okay with that. All right. Rob.
Thank you. So I think for us it's really early days to be able to kind of drill in on something like ROI. But I think the opportunity for us that we think is really interesting is just the ability to start using our first-party data in conjunction with clients' first-party data in a way that drives mutual value. So I think that that's what's most attractive to us and the kind of strategic discussions we're having with clients right now.
Can you guys talk to what percentage? So I'm not talking about the actual sort of the sales itself, the handshake, but the fulfillment, the actual buy itself. What percentage of your video inventory now is actually transacted through a programmatic-like platform versus not? Can you talk to that?
I'll take a stab. So video for us is highly sold, right? We don't see as much in the programmatic channel. I think what's interesting, one trend we are seeing is that people I would think of as programmatic buyers, whether that's a company like Adapt TV or a Tube Mogul, who I would think of as a video DSP, are starting to come to us and basically, wanting to do what looks and smells like a direct buy at guaranteed rate card rates, except they want to use programmatic technology. They want to use the technology. So we're starting to see a lot of that activity, which we think is great. And I think it goes to your point on the, supply dynamics of the industry. There's just not much out there, and a lot of people want it.
So Erwin, if LiveRail is sort of myopically focused on sort of helping publishers yield optimize, right? I mean, if we proliferate this upfront like buying cycle with pre-negotiated prices and minimum commits, how much runway do you have there to actually use technology and data to make a meaningful impact?
Actually, quite a bit. This is something I was speaking about yesterday where for the premium guys in the upfront business, we have 2 broadcasters that we power that's going to be about $40 million that are coming through programmatically. And the way that's going to sit is first call goes to these programmatic deals before the direct sold. They're selling at such high CPMs by utilizing the data on the buy side. If it matches, the ad shows. If it doesn't match, it goes to direct sold. So there's a transformation happening right now in the industry where, at least for video, it's not about remnant anymore, and it's about direct sales. I mean, you guys are building bigger direct sales from a programmatic standpoint. So it really is, when you talk about RTB is sort of for the remnant side, and the programmatic sales is a very real thing. I mean, you look at companies like Procter & Gamble and Kraft that are basically claim they're going to spend a huge chunk of their money programmatically. So it's moving further up in the funnel and the priority change for the publisher's ad server.
John, Jay, both of you sort of, take a different lens in it, but where's the heartburn? Like when you guys are sitting down with owners of inventory that are lighting up on your platform, what are you hearing as the most consistent business challenges for which they're trying to solve?
So the publishers that we work with definitely are most focused on access to the branded TV dollars. Like Erwin said, a lot of times the video marketplace is still relatively constrained, especially in sort of the premium space. So it's really about access, and a lot of times it has to do, too, with the controls that they have over who runs, because they do have direct sales forces, especially the branded guys, and it is important to not infringe on and respect what the direct sales forces bring to the table there. So they need that flexibility and the ability to not only bring the branded dollars to them, but then also to be able to control which ones they're running right now. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we hear from our guys.
So, I mean, I'm hearing a little bit there that kind of wrestling the workflow in general of video is somewhat of a business challenge as well.
Yeah, it's more about complementing the direct sales efforts versus competing with direct sales efforts.
Okay. Jay, you have a different lens?
Not so much different. I'll add on to it. I mean, I think everything that, these gentlemen are saying is we're seeing similar things. I think, certainly true yield management, right? So when we move from obviously a tactical issue of sales channel conflict into maximum revenue, output for a, for a big publisher and business. I think there's still some work to be done by our entire ecosystem to make sure that we can justify everything that we're doing. But, ultimately, I think programmatic direct or preferred marketplace style, mechanisms are very much helping to, change some of the perception. I think, certainly, the title of this discussion is around, race to the bottom, and I just don't think that's relevant anymore, right? Because we're not talking about monetizing inventory that is, was otherwise unsellable. We're talking about something completely different that may have been a direct marketing approach back in the early days, but that's also been the same scenario that's existed since 1996. So, where we are today is really, I think, getting much closer to fulfilling the dream that everybody in digital had when we first started, which is, how do we actually, drive maximum intelligence against whatever action a brand is looking for, and whether we use, a fax machine in the old days or smoke signals or an RTB protocol doesn't really matter, right? And I think we've certainly proved as an industry that we are there for sure. This is a massive marketplace across many different types of businesses, agencies, everybody in the ecosystem. And in my view, it's just going to continue in a very positive way. Now it's a matter of, okay, let's solve the last piece, which is true yield management, so that we can get over any, existing friction in that, sort of channel conflict issue.
So I want to sort of respond to something you said before I send another question to the panel. Jay, I think you're right. I think your comment about the sort of lack of relevance of the quip of a race to the bottom, but I think that's on this stage, right? I mean, in totality, the industry right now, I think, is struggling because, the ship has sailed and we're sort of, a lot of folks are sitting on the dock and they know they should have been on it, but, they missed the call, right? So I think programmatic is something that is moving at such a pace that and it's changing how we do business, not just in the workflow, but in how we talk about it. And I do think that there are a lot of folks left behind that we have to ingratiate and bring along. Like, that's our responsibility. And you guys, especially as technology providers, have that cross to bear, right? So I'm gonna go back and, just because it's simplistic. Jeremy, Rob, how are you guys doing business differently? Like, what is the talent mapping look like? What's the workflow? I mean, because, right, the way I liken it, so I talk about this, like, you talk about TV business, right? Guys going from bill of materials-based business to then they were software and app platforms, and now they're data companies. I mean, you guys sort of are a similar situation, right? Where you were content creators, and then you were somewhat, both of you sort of have morphed in some ways to distributors, and now you're in the business of data. That feels like that's challenging and change management, and maybe a little bit disruptive. How you riding that wave?
Yeah, it's absolutely disruptive. I mean, whether we've had a number of people come on board who, some come from publishing backgrounds, some come from technology backgrounds. I come from the buy side. So there's all sorts of folks coming to Weather that are not traditional publishers. And at the same time, I would say everything that you just described is all additive, right? Like, none of the stuff that we do on a daily basis goes away. It's not like we stop producing a weather forecast or running a cable channel or creating great web content or building a great mobile app. We still have to do all those things. I think we just have to do that and more. So I think of it as adding talent to the company, not necessarily, I think a lot of people think like, oh, is this sort of like replacing? I don't see it that way. I see it more of an additive approach to, the core that's already there. But they are new skills. I mean, we're hiring data scientists. We're hiring technologists. We're hiring lots of different folks.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we're a data company now. I think our primary objective is to create content and distribute content from our partners at the music labels to users wherever they want to view them, whatever screen, and primarily that's the case, and then connecting our clients, our advertisers, to those users within that content. I think adding data, first party, third party, or clients' first party data is an opportunity to find new ways to drive advertising, create new value, and to drive different levels of performance, but the business hasn't changed as much as just the way we do different ways of packaging and putting the stuff out there. Primarily, we're focused on the consumers.
Okay. So I want to dovetail off of what Jeremy said, because to me, the media by itself and the efficiency that we gain through the use of data, right, and technology to make it more addressable. There's the elimination of waste that is data and better targeting, right, the addressable side of it. And then there's the efficiency on the operational side. Theoretically, your overhead should be less if you're using technology to displace, you know, spreadsheets and media planning and buying, right? But I'm going back to what Jeremy said, which is additive, and that's what I'm hearing from the buy side and the sell side is that, you know, we haven't hit that inflection point of where this is not an incrementally more cost of doing business. When are we going to get to the place where the ROI is going to start to be measurable on the operational side as well as on the sales side?
I would say that a lot of that has to do with the adoption of standards. I mean, so when you think about
Erwin, can you be specific? Is that media formats? Is that
that's integrations.
API protocols?
Yeah. So one thing that you have to keep in mind is one platform doesn't just talk to another platform automatically. There's always some sort of tweaking that needs to happen. There's a lot of learning how the data flows. There's just a lot of we all do things a little bit differently inherently, and so the uplift for the integrations takes a long time, and then ultimately the optimization behind it. So there's a lot of people that it's very high touch. Today, it's extremely high touch when you talk about programmatic, regardless of how many dollars you're trying to spend. There's a lot of touch. So down the road, when the integrations become more standard, when everybody's embracing OpenRTB, it becomes less of an operational burden. But on the sales side, there's still it's selling data, right? It's completely different than selling, you know, potentially a media property, a front door sponsorship. So I don't know if that ever goes away because you're always going to want to sell those front door sponsorships. But I'm just thinking about efficiencies on the operational side. There hasn't been a dramatic drop just yet, but I think over time you will see that.
All right, so John, we're actually, you know what, I'm Jay, and then I'm going to come back to you, John. Jay, because Google is known for having the cleanest, most approachable APIs on the planet for your ad stack, right? It's kind of one of the things you guys hold your hat on. So let's fast forward to Erwin's utopian world where everybody plays nice and we're all in the same sandbox. Where's the secret sauce? If you're a tech provider and you have a stack, what's your secret sauce? Is it your algos, optimization? What is it?
It's great. You know, it's a great question, and it's funny.
Jay always says that whenever I ask him a question he doesn't want to answer. Just to be clear.
Hopefully the secret's the price.
No. Yeah. No, it is legitimately a great question because, you know, I happen to be married to a lovely woman who's in Wall Street, and so her, you know, first question always after meeting people in our industry is what, you know, wow, there seem to be a lot of you guys doing the same thing. What's the difference? So I'm very happy answering this question.
I've been doing this for 15 years. My wife still doesn't understand what I do, just so we're clear.
You know, I think a couple of things. You know, first and foremost, I don't think we really have to answer that question right now as an industry. I will get to an answer. No. I will get to an answer. But you know, how many advertising agencies are there in the world doing the same thing?
Right, but that's different. They're a services business.
Sure, but at the same time, no technology company is ever 100% free of service, right? So, and you know, even when we do get to that utopian place and you know, where all the systems are working perfectly, harmoniously, you're still going to have to interpret data, right? And there still will be irrational behavior based on market conditions that happen, macroeconomic events that change marketing strategies and everything else. So there's always going to be a service level, you know, of some kind within most of the ad technology sort of marketing platform business, because you're still going to want to maximize your customers' usage of the product, and no algorithm is going to be 100%, you know, running itself. So I think that we all have, you know, a long future there, and as a result of that, they're going to be, and we see it all day long, right? Sitting as somebody who sits on top of the Google Ad Exchange, and you know, look at all of our fantastic partners, many of whom are in this room, who are buying inventory and doing excellent things on behalf of their clients to generate extra value for them. There are some similarities between these platforms, but how they go to market, how they service their customer, how they interpret the data by different type of segment, whether it be automotive or financial, et cetera, is different. And you know, the algorithms also need time to learn, and if you've been a specialist in financial and then you switch to automotive, blah, blah, blah. So I do think that we're a little ways away before a lot of folks say, well, okay, what's happening in the M&A world, and is there going to be massive consolidation, et cetera? And I think that sure, there's going to be some, but I think there's also room for a lot of really talented players in the market. But is that enough of an answer, or you want to go deeper?
Thank you, Jay. I was just giving you a hard time. So I wanted to see you take off your shirt or something. So we had a little joke in the green room. So John, maybe I can tell you like one of the things that's sort of twirling in the back of my mind, which is one of the reasons I asked Jay the question to come back to you, because if you look at the evolution of, let's start display as a more mature programmatic market, right? And you look at the evolution of video, which is still nascent, but it's maturing, right? Because we sort of can at least check the box in every bucket in the value chain. Typically, most of the major players, right, have started out as a marketplace, which is the, driving the transactions, the algos, the matching, all that stuff. But the economics don't pan out, so everybody forward or backward migrates to either the sell side or the buy side. So if fundamentally, what is the crux of differentiation eventually, and Jay, I think you're right, I think services will sort of, that high touch sale is what's going to lead it, but at the end of the day, it's about how well your technology functions in the long tail that creates sustainable businesses. If the economics of that on the front end of the business cycle don't pan out, where do we net out? Like that's kind of what scares me is, where do we net out at the end of the day?
Well, I mean, I still think every advertiser arrangement that we've worked with still needs that scale, right? And with scale comes access to all the different supply elements that you have. To zero in on the TV dollars to bring those online, there's certainly the ability to, we're finding with all this data discussion, every panel that I've been on that starts around programmatic and streamlining always ends in data. And I think the reason that it ends in data is because that's what the TV advertisers are looking for. They want to hit females 25 to 54. They want to hit high-income people, all the different targets that they have. So if we can efficiently make their lives more efficient on the front end as well, I mean, I think there'll always be a place for that, because bringing as much data as we can to the transaction can allow people to just get smarter on the front end. I just feel like as long as we're constantly sort of feeding with data and scale, there'll always be a place for new advertisers or new demand size to come in.
So Rob, given that you have, you sort of have a very purist set of optics for your role in the ecosystem, you're a content creator, right? In order to, but what you did say, the previous question, that sort of a lot of what the reason you're using programmatic is the marrying of the first party data sets, both of your advertisers and yourselves. Are you finding that you need a hand from the programmatic ecosystem? Are your platform providers or partners or technology providers helping you? Or are you just relying on a DMP? Like that first party, was that something that was a strategic consideration that preceded entering a programmatic, fulfillment ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the way that, we're a content creator and a content distributor for music videos from our label partners. And you definitely need folks like Adapt TV and LiveRail and Videology to enable the melding of the data. So if there's third-party data, first-party data, and brand data, and they want to apply that in a way, that's not an easy way to do it now, especially in a way that's privacy compliant, that protects everybody's visibility. So it's a strategic conversation because we're hearing a lot of our clients who want to do that. And they want to do that in the context, to your point earlier, of integrations with the artists that are on our platform and sponsorships and reach media, against demo buys. So we think that they all kind of work together, but you certainly need ad tech at the bottom of it to be able to connect the dots right now. I think some of the challenges, though, associated with it right now is just visibility into that data and how you do it. You mentioned something earlier about kind of waterfalling or passing back and something like that. So when we can get to a place where, first-party data on both sides can be used and targeted, and there can be more efficiencies there, I think that that's where things start to get closer to how direct buys are done now, as opposed to sort of this pass back, pass.
What does, I'm just going to sort of lob some stuff out there, and whoever wants to jump ball. So what does premium video buying look like, or selling rather, look like in 24 months? do you still have a sales force? Is that sales force just pre-negotiating upfronts that are then what percentage is fulfilled through programmatic platforms? Like, where are we? And this is for pure play digital video content owners, not broadcasters, but like the Vivos and the Weather Channels of the world, right?
You absolutely have a sales force, and you have a talented sales force. Like I said, buys are not just data-driven media buys, at least on our platform. It's about sponsorships. It's about live event activation. It is about creating original content that's based on brand needs. Additionally, when you're looking at television budgets, as John mentioned, that's not always just about overlaying first-party data, or it's about delivering demos, and it's about how the reach and frequency and the duplication with TV. You can automate that, but that's not necessarily what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of that being handled through traditional sort of sales means.
So I think, so part of my question, the reason I sort of, Freudian said buy side at the beginning is because sort of what I want to hear from you guys is not just how you see your business changing, but I would love your insight as to what you are anticipating the demands on the buy side are going to be, right? I mean, is it that they want to pre-negotiate because those upfronts and those inventory guarantees are what give them leverage as an agency or trading desk, but they want to automate anything on the buy side, so to Rob's point, they can buy on age and gender, right? I mean, I kind of want you to cover both sides of that coin.
They're going to do whatever is more efficient for them. In other words, cheaper.
What do you think that is?
I think probably a combination of both. I mean, in particular with video, like when I see race to the bottom, I think, to me, supply and demand determines price. And in the case of video, there's not as much supply, so the price is just higher. Display, and it's naturally that way, right? Because when you watch an online video, yeah, maybe you'll get 1 or 2 pre-rolls in front of that. You go to a display page, you're going to see 3 or 4, 5 display ads on that page. It's not uncommon. So there's always going to be supply constraints in video, and I think that just drives the price higher. To your question about what buyers are going to do, my bet, if I was wagering, and we are wagering in a lot of ways, is that I think we'll see the upfront commitments, particularly around video where supply is absolutely scarce, but they're going to want to execute through programmatic technology platforms to use data, get the targeting that they want. And then I think there's an interesting question around, well, wait a second, if you really care about the data, is there some sort of upfront or guarantee around the data, right? Because I don't just want the inventory, I want a certain type of inventory guaranteed with data. So
Jeremy, because I don't want to use words for you, but does that mean performance against the media?
No, I mean like a segment, like an audience segment or whether data.
Oh, guaranteed delivery against a segment. Okay,
correct.
Got it. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
I think it's dangerous to assume that everything's going to go programmatic. There's an enormous value in.
Although you're hoping, right?
No, I think that changes the economics of online and how you provide content to the actual viewers, and it probably would look a lot different if you did away with the sponsorships. The content would probably suck online, to be honest. You couldn't afford to do anything that was really groundbreaking. I mean, think about when you sell $1 million of media, there's probably 20% of that probably goes into custom development of the content, the units. There's so much that you cannot templatize and programmatic. It has to be a balance of both.
So, Erwin, to be clear, when I say, I'm only talking about CPM-based buys, right? So CPM-based video buys and how that's, because I agree with you, we're not going to change the media mix, right? But how does that CPM-based buy split out amongst the different sort of sales mechanics, right?
Yeah, somebody said not too long ago that they felt like everybody on the buy side is going to be using audience validation by the end of this year. I mean, it's OCR, VCE, I mean, there's a ton of that. If you assume that we get to that by the end of this year, maybe even next year, I think programmatic is going to be extremely leveraged against that.
It's a great point. John, you want to?
I was just going to say, it's just, the CPM and fill rate are obviously what really drive publisher behavior, but also I think the third thing is ease of use and how easy you are to work with. And that's really what I think programmatic buying really is it's frictionless facilitation of transactions, right? So, and that's really kind of the third thing. And like Jeremy said, like really that's, the price is sort of a function of just how much you have available. But in the future, as well as sort of how the dollars flow, I think just that Erwin's ideal society about everybody integrated in a seamless way.
Right.
That's going to be, we're tagging that. We're going to market that ourselves.
It was utopian, by the way.
Utopian.
Erwintopia.
Good question. Sorry, that's my response when something is going. No, so to have that frictionless transactions also, I think, is sort of a big part in the future as we all get things sort of nailed down together. will be a much cleaner way to execute buys too. A lot of it's around execution, not just price and that kind of stuff.
And Jay, I mean, given that you guys sort of have, you know, one of the longest standing ad stacks from the DoubleClick days, like what are your sort of thoughts on how the usage changed? I mean, obviously you're doubling down with AdX and the more streamlined integration within the ad stack, right? I mean, I think that's sort of that's a weather vane as to where we're heading. But what do you think? Clients are coming to you and saying, make DoubleClick work more efficiently with AdX, right? I mean, that's what you've translated there. So what was the ask that you heard in the marketplace?
It's a very good question, Ashley.
Thanks, Jay.
Well, I mean, I think I'll jump to that, but let me go back to kind of the previous question and build on what these guys are saying as well. Is, you know, I don't think it's a good place to go to say that, like, will salespeople exist in the future, right? I don't think there should be this, you know, I don't think we should perpetuate the current sort of debate over, you know, Salesforce versus no Salesforce, right? Because you're, you know, indirect versus direct sales versus program, you know, and programmatic somehow fits in that. I think that's all going to merge together, and, you know, we're already seeing that happen inside of Google. And, you know, at the end of the day, the programmatic system is just a fulfillment system, right? You're still talking about finding value for your customer, right? So salespeople are going to evolve, and, you know, as somebody who runs the sales team, who is 100% sort of programmatic in the indirect sales channel, we still, you know, so we're servicing John at Videology and others in the room. We still have salespeople, right? Because we have to make sure that we're exposing all of the individual aspects of our business to John to make sure it works properly on, you know, for him on behalf of his clients. So I think, you know, 24 months from now, definitely still salespeople. All the salespeople in the room,
Well,
we all still have jobs.
But Jay, may I just please just make a distinction? Because I do think it's different. I think
Yes.
technology sales is
Sure.
different from media sales,
but-
right? So I think that's a little bit of the contrast.
Absolutely, but that's what I am still saying, though, right? Is that I'm a former media sales guy who now, you know, sells technology platforms, and there's not a, you know, yes, there's a learning curve, et cetera, but at the end of the day, the value exchange is still the same. You're still talking about finding the right audience for a brand who has an objective, and whether or not, you know, that means you're selling them a 300 by 250, you're selling them an architecture that gives them access to a 300 by 250, or a native ad, or a social platform, et cetera. It's still the same thing. So, you know, so I do think that, you know, again, answering that question, I think in the future there will still absolutely be not only salespeople doing this job, but also, sure, individual sponsorships, all the rest of it. I think we said that already. But back to your question about specifically kind of, you know, DoubleClick and Google and our, you know, focus, absolutely we're all in, right? I mean, we see just an absolutely amazing business opportunity, not only for our business, but also all of these technology platforms who are partners of ours who are you know, doing incredible things and really revolutionizing the, you know, the industry. So
I want to sort of make, you know, having done the buy side this morning and doing this a lot, you know, there's a general observation, right? If we just sort of go back and we look at audience guarantees, Erwin, to your point, right? Let's look at where the EGRP started. And you have some maybe emotional baggage at Google attached to this because you guys doubled down on it, right? And if you remember, I think it's fair to say the ecosystem doubled down on it, specifically the digital guys, because it was opportunistic to be able to tap into the TV budgets, right? And then we saw this shift where, you know, there was a bit of fear on the TV side of the business, and so all of a sudden audience guarantees came about extending the reach of television, which is theoretically finite inventory, right? So the power dynamic has shifted back to sort of the legacy owners of the big budgets, which is the TV buyers. And I think what's interesting, the parallel for me, which is why I asked the question, is that not only is the way that we buy and the measures, you know, the sort of standards to which we fulfill becoming more like television, the workflow and the business cycle of digital video, premium video fulfillment is becoming much similar to the upfront business cycle in television, where the scatter market is a smaller percentage of inventory held back, right? I mean, I don't know if there's anything to say about that. I just think that's a really interesting observation point, because we sort of had this idea that digital video is, you know, forcing and pushing and kicking TV to move in a certain way, and in some ways we're following, not leading, and I think we really need to be humble about that in some regards.
I just add one comment to that. I don't know if it's like following or leading. I think it's more just finding the most efficient model. Like the TV model works in a lot of ways. Billions of dollars are transacted that way. So it's more like if it ain't broke, right? Like there are things that work very well about that marketplace, and you know, it's nothing wrong with borrowing things that work. You know, from a.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big, you know, the white elephant in the room is it still not broke once you start to introduce data into television? Rob? And then we'll turn it over to questions.
Well, I just think with audience guarantees, it's just a little different. Like, I know you can go on to a platform like Videology and buy an audience guarantee across their exchange and network, but it's a little different where in a lot of what we're seeing in programmatic, where brands want to use third-party or first-party data to make an evaluation on an impression. When you're asking a publisher for an audience guarantee, you're asking them to guarantee a certain level of comp at a certain price, so that automatically shifts the data need to the publisher to deliver a guarantee. Now, whether that's bought through a programmatic platform or not, I'm not sure it's necessary. It's just automating it, but it's the publisher who has to deliver the highest composition at the most efficient way for a demo. So it's a little different than I think the other side of premium programmatic, where you're using data that doesn't necessarily have a guarantee against a demo segment.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we maybe have time for one question, two questions. Mock Chanel, if anybody has any. No. Yes. Go ahead, Lincoln. I'll repeat it. So I think Lincoln's question was sort of why are we limited to video? And I mean, in regards, we parsed out as a result of what the business impetus was for the ecosystem. Display has sort of been kept church and state from video, right? Because the use of technology and data was for different means. It was to drive the value of remnant up. And video is an illiquid market, so it's about making it work more efficiently, right? I mean, do you guys want to talk about?
I think your question is more into where the pre-roll is going. Is it before a game? Is it before content? Is it a transitional ad, perhaps? I would say that you guys could probably speak to this more. On the buy side, you look at those inventory subsets differently, and they provide different value. So, you know, your media brand sites with video content would yield a higher CPM, and there's other. The games might be a little bit lower. You're looking just for audience there. You're not looking from a branded standpoint. So I think it's just literally just segmenting the inventory for different purposes.
Yeah, we would segment pre-roll, which is in front of content, versus, say, a video interstitial, which is just a video ad and just a video ad. And then our demand partners all have different requirements across that. Most of the people that we work with want pre-roll, want a TV-like experience, which is the phrase we're.
But I think it's really important to say that we've settled into a 15 and 30 construct, right? Like that's one of the biggest issues with programmatic that a lot of brands have is they're doubling down on branded content and long form, and you can't run a 72-second piece of branded content around premium video, right? So that is actually one of the things, if you look at brand buying and brand investment around branded content, that's one of the challenges that I think programmatic we need to tackle, right? I mean, that's one of the things that television can't do, which is a lot of runway and white space for us from a digital perspective if we have agile and fluid infrastructure. Okay, so we have to wrap it up. I'm sorry, but I just want to say thank you. I give these guys, I razz them, but every time I do one of these things, this morning as well as today, I get smarter, and by that I'm very humbled and I'm very grateful. So thank you for joining me on stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashley.